I'm excited and I hope you are too, because today we're going to be editing our first set of photos using Adobe Lightroom. Now, I use Lightroom every single week. Every photo that I post on social media for Learn Share or even my photography business, Cjam photos, those are edited in Lightroom. Whether it's weddings, concerts, portrait sessions, every photo that I edit and post is edited in Adobe Lightroom. It's probably one of the most popular and most powerful editing softwares out there for photography. And yes, you can edit photos in Adobe Photoshop, but Lightroom was designed specifically for editing photos, especially if you're editing a lot of photos, like 100 photos, 200, 300, or even more. Lightroom makes it very easy to batch edit a lot of photos, so you definitely won't regret using it. And I'll put a link in the description as to where you can get Lightroom. And before we start editing, every photo that we're going to be editing today, I'll make them available to you guys for download. So check the first link in this video's description. And here's a pro tip. To get the best out of your photo edits and the best out of Lightroom, I recommend shooting RAW on your camera, meaning not shooting the traditional JPEG, but shooting the RAW file format. The traditional JPEG that your camera gives you is a compressed file that your camera just crushes all the data into to the smallest file size possible. And that's not good for your editing because you're losing a lot of the data that you can use to edit in Lightroom, versus when you shoot RAW, you're getting all that uncompressed data that you can bring into Lightroom and really create some magic. So I highly recommend shooting RAW, and don't worry if you don't have a camera that can shoot RAW, because some cell phones can even shoot RAW. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be making these RAW files that we're going to be editing today available for you to download and edit with me. So with all that said, let's start editing. So here we are in Adobe Lightroom, and as you can see, it looks very different from Photoshop to all my Photoshop users out there. And up top here, we have in the top right hand corner, we have the library module, the develop module, and all the other modules that we can use, right? And what you'll mostly find yourself using is the library module, where you'll browse all of the photos that you import into Lightroom, and you'll make your edits in your develop module. Let me go ahead and click that. And this is what the develop module looks like. All the controls are grayed out right now over here because we haven't imported any photos yet. So let's go ahead and bring in some photos and get started on editing. But before I do that, I want to just go up top here to File, and then I'm looking for Edit, and I'm going down to Catalog Settings. And I'm just going to make sure that this backup feature here in Lightroom is set to every time Lightroom exits, right? By default, it may be once a week when exiting Lightroom, but you want to back up your catalog every time Lightroom exits, because your photos, the edits to your photos that you make are stored within your catalog, right? And if that catalog isn't backed up and for some weird reason you end up losing your catalog, all your edits are gone and you have to re-edit all of your photos, and you don't want that to happen to you. So practice backing up your catalog every time Lightroom exits, and then you can locate that photo on your computer wherever it's stored, and then just back that up as well on an external hard drive or in the cloud, or just email it to yourself depending on how big the file size is. So that's good practice. Always back up your catalog. So let me go ahead and press OK, and as you can see, this is where my catalog is getting saved, and you can just look on your path on your computer, this location right here, and you'll find your catalog files so you can back them up, right? So let me go ahead and click OK, and you can also just click this little show button right here, and it will just open that folder for you. All right, okay, and let's go ahead and import some photos. I could go back to my library module, and I could just hit the import button right here. Or if I know where the photos are on my computer, I can just locate the folder, which is right here, and then I can just drag in all of my photos, or I can drag one in, and then Lightroom will ask me if I want to bring all of them in or if I want to select a few for editing, right? So let's just go ahead and hit check all, and then let's hit import, right? And then it will load up all my photos that I just imported. And as you can see, we have all our photos right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Now we can go ahead and go into our develop module like I mentioned earlier by clicking up top here, or I can press D on my keyboard, right? Let me just go ahead and click develop, And here's my photo. Let me go ahead and enter full screen mode by pressing Shift and F. Now we're in full screen mode, and over here on my right hand side, you can see these are all the controls that I mentioned earlier. When you make your edits, this is where all your edits will pop up, right? This is where you'll make all the changes to your photos by adjusting all of these sliders, right? And let me just collapse all of these for you. You can see the different controls that you have here, and the ones that I normally use are Effect, Lens Correction, Detail, HSL or Color, Tone Curve, and Basic, right? Pretty straightforward. There's nothing complicated here. All you have to do is just locate the controls that you want to adjust and just slide a slider, right? As simple as that. So the first thing I want to adjust here, or I want to show you here, is your white balance adjusters right here. You can adjust the temperature of your photo. The temperature is how cool or how warm your photo is. Cool being on the blue side, warm being on the yellow side. And you can also adjust the tint, which is green being obviously on the greener side of the tint, and purple being on the opposite spectrum of the tint, right? And I don't normally adjust these too much because I try to get my settings in camera first as best as possible, so I don't have to do as much work in editing, right? Not much heavy lifting when editing. So I'll probably just leave the temperature as is for now for the purposes of this tutorial. And let me just go ahead and start with the exposure that's right beneath that. And if I slide the exposure bar to the left, you can see that it's taking out all of the brightness of the image, obviously. And if I slide it all the way to the right, it's just making the image really, really harsh, right? And if I double click on the slider, it will zero it back out, right? So I don't really want to adjust the exposure on this image because it's fine as it is. Maybe I'll bring it down a bit to get some of the harshness off my face. And then the contrast, what I normally do is go anywhere between +40 or +45. So that's about good. And highlights, the highlights will affect these white areas here that are really bright. It will take some of the harshness off. The whites operate in the same way, similar to highlights, but a little bit differently. So let me just go ahead and slide back some of the highlights right here. Let me just bring it all the way to -100 so you see what I mean. See that? This is where we were at 0, and then -100. You can see the difference really right here. Like, let's look right here and see what happens, right? Let's bring it back to 0. See that? And this is what -100 does, right? So let's leave it at about -81. See, that's already looking good so far. And I normally just adjust the blacks. Let's bring that to about -40. About there, and probably let's push up some of the shadows. If you adjust the shadows, it will lift the shadowy areas of your image, obviously. So let me just bring it to the left to show you what it does. See that? It's making the dark areas really dark, increasing the shadows, right? But that's not what I want. I want to just lift it a little bit, just a little bit. So the area on my pants is not that dark, right? So let's just bump that up a little bit to about there. And you can always keep track of your edits to see how you're coming along, to see what changes you've made and how they're affecting the overall look of your image by hitting Y on your keyboard for the before and after, right? So let me just go ahead and hit Y on my keyboard. Boom, there we go. And look at that. Already you can see the difference with the after version of the picture on the right versus where we started in the before on the left. Which one do you guys like so far? I really like the one on the right. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think, right? Let's go ahead and hit Y again. And then let's go down to presence right here beneath that. And then let me just adjust the clarity a little bit. A little less than 10 is good, or 10 is good. I don't normally pass 10 unless I'm going for a really intense, gritty look. Let me show you what it does if you were to increase it some more. See that? It gives that like grungy look. Let me bring it back down to 0. Look at it now. See that? That's a pretty cool look. This may be a look that works for you. So based off all that we do today, you can decide how you want to start editing your photos, or if you want to change your style of editing to maybe something that looks a little bit more cooler to you. But I don't really normally go too high on clarity, as I mentioned earlier, right? And if I were to bring it all the way over to the negative, it would just really soften the image, give it that dreamy look, right? But that's not what I want. Let me just go up to about 10 or 12 is fine. That's good. And dehaze, if your image is hazy, like looking kind of foggy, you can use dehaze to just like eliminate some of that haze or put some of that haze back in if you'd like, also giving it that dreamy look, right? Let me zero it out by double clicking. And then saturation and vibrance, that will intensify the colors in your image. You can just put a little bit of vibrance, maybe about 10, and the saturation the same, just a little bit, not too much, because I like to go down to each individual color under HSL. I'll get to that in a minute, and just intensify each color individually, right? Let me go back up to the whites and just bring off some of the whites and see what it does. That's what it does if it's all the way over to -100. Let's see what happens when we go all the way in the opposite direction. It just intensifies everything. Maybe that's the look you're going for. That's not what I'm going for in this particular edit, right? Now I can go down to tone curve, and this gives you that nice faded film look. You can adjust the curve any way you want, and you can also use it to intensify the exposure of your image. Tone curves is a whole science by itself, but what I normally do is I just lift the curve like this, just about there, and you can see the measurements right beneath the curve and above the curve that's saying 20/26. I normally just leave it like right about here, and you can see what it's doing in this area, right, the shadowy area. Let me hit Y on my keyboard for the before and after, and you can see that, right, it's making it like faded, like that really filmic look, and that's what I like. So let me go ahead and hit Y to go back to the main view. All right, this is looking good so far. Let me go down some more to HSL and the color. And if you were to pick one of these colors, right, just click on one of them like the red. You can increase or decrease the saturation. Let me show you what I mean. If I slide it to the left, you can see it's sucking all the red out of the shirt, but that's not what I want. Let me leave it at 0. As a matter of fact, let me take some of the red out of the shirt because it's a little bit too strong for me right now, right? Let's go ahead and just bring it down about that is good. -13 is good. And if I wanted, I can also intensify the green. Let me just click on the green, because obviously green is present in this image in the trees behind me, right? And I can just slide the slider to the left to decrease the green, or to the right to increase it all the way up. It's to about anywhere in the 60s. There is some yellow back there as well. Let me just bump up the yellow a little bit. Let me bring it all the way over to the negative to show you the difference. See that? There is some yellow there, but I don't want that look. So let me just go about mid-range 50s. That's good. And let me go to the blue to just pump up the color of my jeans a little bit. About 48 should be good. That's good. And I wouldn't touch the orange because my skin tone will get affected by the orange. Let me show you what I mean. Let me just click to zoom in. If I were to bring the orange all the way over to -100, it will just take all the color out of my skin, and that's not what I want. Not for this particular edit, but maybe if you wanted to do an edit where the person is black and white and their clothing is of a particular color, you have to make sure before you start editing that photo that whatever skin tone that person is, there is no clothing that they have on that is the same color, or there's none of that color in the scene that will get affected by your edit, right? But that's a little bit more advanced, and you don't have to worry about that right now. But the more photos you take, the more you edit, the more creative you get with your editing, right? So let's go ahead and double click and undo that. And then let's just leave that as is. And let me show you something. Let me hit green one more time. And if I wanted to change the green, like the look of the green, I can go to hue and adjust the hue, and pay attention to the trees behind me, right? Look at the trees and look what happens when I slide the hue slider of the green. See that? It's getting more yellowy, right? Instead of green. And if I were to like go all the way to the right, see that? It's giving it more of an aqua mixed in with the green, right? Look at that. Maybe that's the look that you want. Is it what I want right now? Not really. But let's just push it over a little bit just to give it a little mix, right? To get a little cool look. And you can do the same thing with the red, right? All of these sliders have hue adjustment. If I pushed it all the way over to the right, it will become more orange, right? See that? All the way over to the left, more pinkish going to purplish, right? But that's not what I want. So let me just leave that zeroed out. And then let me go down to sharpening under detail, and you can just increase the sharpening of this image to anywhere you'd like, as long as the image looks sharp enough to you. Sorry. For me, we already took this photo with good settings in camera while we were shooting this, and this photo was taken by Dexter, a good friend of mine, and he's a awesome photographer. He's way better than I am. So I trust him and I know that this photo is sharp. I mean, as you guys can see, this is a solid photo, right? And there's not much that's needed in editing, as I mentioned earlier. So Dex, big up yourself, respect. Love this photo, love it, love it, love it. And this is my skateboard. Yes, I am still learning, not learning as much as I'd want, but I'm trying. I bought it for my birthday, my 30th birthday, so I'm excited to get learning, but I'm learning really, really slow. Is it too old to learn skateboarding at 30? You never know, right? No, back to editing. So I wouldn't do much sharpening here because this photo is already good as is, right? But if you want, you can just sharpen your image if you think it's lacking a little bit of sharpening. And in noise reduction, if you took a photo maybe at too high of an ISO or in a dark situation and it's grainy or noisy, you can just add some luminance and reduce that grain or noise, right? So I'm just putting that on your radar. So if you want to experiment with that, go right ahead. And then next I'll go to lens corrections. And this is where your camera will apply the correct profile to the lens that it detects on your photos, right? That's also a bonus of shooting RAW, right? You get that with shooting JPEG as well, but shooting RAW is much better for that. So let me go ahead and hit enable profile corrections, and what you see happened is, let me do it again. You can see that there, it just automatically corrected for the lens that I use, right? We did in fact use a Tamron 70-200 2.8 lens to shoot this image, right? And what you can also do is, if you hit I on your keyboard, you'll get the information of the photo that you're editing, right? See that? It says LSPV 045, the name of the file, the date when it was taken, and the size of the photo. And if I hit it one more time, it will give me some more settings, like showing me what camera was used and the lens and ISO settings, right? So pretty cool. And if you also want, if you want more screen space to edit, all of these tabs on the top, right, left and bottom, you can just hit these little arrows here. See this arrow? And it will give you more space, right? See that? If I wanted this one to disappear, I can do that as well, or this bottom one. But obviously I don't want all of them gone because I'm using the one on the right. So let's just keep it like this just for now, right? And then if you want, you can also remove some distortion from off the lens, meaning if your image was warped, if you're using a really wide lens, this lens isn't wide, so I don't need to adjust that right now. And you can remove or add some lens vignetting if you want. If you're using a really wide lens, you tend to get a dark circular area on the outer edges of your image. You can remove that as well. And on the effects tab right below that, we can also add that same vignette that I was talking about, right? Look what's going to happen now when I increase the amount. See that? If you're going for old-timey Western kind of old filmic look, you can add some vignette to it, but that's not what I want for this edit, so I'll just leave that as is, right? Let me open back my tab, or before I do that, let me go ahead and hit Y on my keyboard, or first let me press I to get rid of this info up here. I, and then let me press Y to see the before and after to see if I'm okay with it, right? And I am liking this. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Let me go full screen. Yeah, that's more like it. And let me turn this on now. And this is what we have before and after. I love the edit that we did so far, guys. Really nice. And I think I just wanted to take out this white thing right here and the edge of this trash can here. Let me just go ahead and hit R on my keyboard. That will give me my crop and straighten tool, and you can adjust the aspect ratio over here. You can do 1:1, you know, a square for Instagram if that's what you want. That's not what I want for this image, so let me go ahead and hit reset. And you have a host of other options here. You have 8.5:11, you know, letter size. You can do 4:6, 16:9, a host of options, right? And I'm just going to freely just crop in the edge. This is not a natural crop. If I were to crop this like within the same aspect ratio that this image was taken, I would have held the shift and then drag in an edge, right? And you can also rotate by just clicking on an edge and just see that rotating as you would like, right? And that's fine. And let me just go ahead and press enter. And then let's do Y again, before and after. And that's where I'll leave this. I'm not going to do anything else to this. What do you guys think? Let me go ahead and show back the menu on the bottom here by just clicking that arrow. And then the one on the right as well. And I can just hit copy right here from the menu on the right. Copy. And then I can copy all those changes that I just made. All of those sliders that I just adjusted. I can go ahead and hit copy, right? And then I can just paste those settings onto my next image, right? But let me show you something really cool before I do that. If I wanted to, let me come out of this by pressing Y. If I wanted to remove these leaves, right, in the background, I can hit Q on my keyboard from my brush tool, and then I can just increase the size of the tool by using the mouse wheel on my keyboard, right? And I can just see that, just brush that out. How cool is that? See that? It's no longer there, right? And you can apply and use a brush tool if you're removing pimples from someone's face. That's a pretty cool tool to use, right? Let's just go ahead and remove some more leaves, right? Just giving you guys an idea of how these tools work in Lightroom, right? Now that we've copied the settings, let me go ahead and paste it onto my next image here by clicking here on the bottom in the strip right here, and then going back over to the right. If you hover over the arrow, the menu will pop up, but if you want it to be permanently there, you can just click the arrow, right? Let's just leave it off screen for now. Hover over it once more and press paste. And see that every change that we just made has been applied to this image, right? Let's look at the before and after by pressing Y. Obviously, all the changes that we made to the previous image are not perfect for this image because the other image was a little bit overexposed. This image is completely underexposed, right? Even with the settings from the other image. So let me just go ahead and hit Y to come out of this. And then let's zero back out the exposure to see what we have. That's what we're working with. Then we can increase the exposure to bring it to a decent enough look. That looks good. Let me just bring the highlights all the way over to -100. And then let's top off some more of the whites. About minus 40 is good. Let's press R for the crop and straighten tool. And just straighten me up a little bit with my crooked pose. And then press enter. And then let's hit Y to look at the before and after. What do you guys think? Look at that. Look how cool that is. We're already finished with this image because we just copied the settings, right? Because we were in the same lighting situation using the same camera, right? And the sun was in the same position. So there's not a whole lot that we require to edit this photo. So this is perfect as is. I wouldn't do anything else to this. Let's go ahead and move over to the next image, right? Let's hit Y to come out of the before and after, and then go over to the next image. And let's say we wanted to make this image black and white, right? I could just go ahead and hit V on my keyboard for my Adobe monochrome or the black and white editing menu. Or you can just come right here to the profile, right? It was on Adobe color before, and you can just hit Adobe monochrome, right? Which is black and white. And then what I would do is, obviously I wouldn't adjust any of the colors in the HSL like I did for the previous images that were in color, but I would just adjust stuff like the tone and the presence, right? So let me just go ahead and bump up the exposure a little bit. And then at contrast for black and whites, for me, all the way to +100, no question, all the way, right? And then I can just bump up the shadows to lift some of the dark areas a little bit. Blacks -40 or -60 because I love my black and whites nice and thick. It's really in your face black and whites. And then maybe we need to push the shadows a little bit more. And then highlights all the way down to -100 to keep the detail in the sky. Look at that, right? It was an overcast day and you can already see it in the sky, right? And let me just hit the whites down a little bit more. And then clarity +10, anywhere there is good. And then we're not using anything here for the B&W, black and white. Detail, sharpening, about 75 is good. Not too much because as I said earlier, try and get your images good in camera first, That way your editing process is much more seamless, because 50% of photography is editing, right? Or maybe even more than that. 90% of your photography is editing. The little 10% is just you taking the photos. All the work comes into editing, right? That's where you make or break your photos. But always try and get it right in camera first. And then let's go ahead and enable profile corrections, right? And you see that what just happened? This is how, look at the edges of the image. Look what happened. See that? It just corrected it for me, right? That's the power of Lightroom. That looks good. And let me go ahead and hit R for my crop and straighten tool. And I'm going to hold Shift and click and drag down the left top corner, right? So about there, that looks good. And then I'm pressing enter. That looks good. But if you notice that my face area is a bit dark, right? That's not what I want. What I can do is I can click K on my keyboard for my mask tool, right? K. And then these menus that I got here, they look pretty similar to the basic menu, but they're not the same. And I can just add some exposure, right? If it were all zeroed out, I can just bump up the exposure, because I know I want my face to get a little bit brighter, and I want the shadows in my face to be less intense so I can actually see my face, right? Go up some more. And then let me just press K one more time to come out of the tool. Then let me zoom in so you guys can actually see what I'm doing, right? Zoom in a little bit more. All right, so what I'm gonna do is press K again for the tool, the mask tool, and I already input the settings for the tool. Let me just go ahead and just brush over the area that I want, right, to lift up or bring back to life, right? That's why you shoot raw. And then let me press K. Let's look at the before and after. Let's just undo that, Control and Z. That's where it was, and that's where it is now. How cool is that? Again, that is why you shoot raw, right? So if you're just getting started in photography, shoot raw. Put your camera in the raw settings, shoot raw, so you have all this power in your editing, right? And then let me zoom back in and show you something pretty cool. Let me remember that brush tool that I mentioned earlier by pressing Q, and I mentioned that you can use it to remove pimples from someone's face. Let me go ahead and just remove some pimples from my face by pressing Q, and then adjusting the size of the tool by rolling my mouse wheel. And then you see this pimple right here. Let me go ahead and just remove that one. See that? And it will just heal that spot for you, right? And you can also let it clone a spot. Like when you click on a spot, it will clone a spot from another spot and put that exact spot right over the spot that you clicked on. That's why it's called cloning, right? But this instance, I want it to heal it. So let me go ahead and press Q. And then if you look over here on your tool options on the right, you see you have clone or heal, right? And then I want to just find another pimple and just heal those spots. I mean, I'm not too crazy about it. This image is of me. It's not important, right? So I'm just gonna just do it a couple more times just to show you for the purposes of this tutorial, right? How cool is that? Let's do a couple more. All right, and if you press Q, you can see all the spots that you remove, right? Pretty cool, pretty cool. And then let me just see if we need to remove anything else. If I wanted to remove this beauty spot on my arm here, I could just click on it and it will just heal it with another spot, right? It will choose the most accurate spot, the most matching spot to heal it with, right? Look at that, it's all gone. How cool is that? All right, and I think I'm satisfied with this image as is in black and white. What do you guys think? Now let me go over to my next image, which is a photo I took about last week or the week before while I was driving home. And in this photo, we can really get creative with like the blues and the green in our HSL or color adjustments, right? So let's get started immediately. Let me show you what I mean. If I wanted to make this image like warmer, I can start with my white balance, right? But I don't want to do that. So let me just start with the exposure. It's a little bit too bright. So let me just bring it back some more, about there. Then contrast, Anywhere in the 40s is good. Highlights, take some off. The image is looking a little bit green to me, so let's correct that by going back up to our white balance, right? Under tint, and just add a little bit of purple in there. About that's good, right? Shadows is fine. Whites, let's take a little bit off. Blacks, about -40, right? Clarity, because it's a landscape photo, meaning not of a person, I can get crazy with the clarity and get more creative, right? Let's bring it all the way up and see what it looks like. That looks cool. Do I want that? Not really. Let's take some off. About there. There's a little bit of haze in this because I shot it through the windshield. So let's take some of the haze off, right? And then now you can see the van right here is like really dark. So let's take off some of the shadows. See that? And then for the saturation, let's pump it up a little more because we're outside, right? It's beautiful outside. And then tone curve, as you know. About there. Did I use tone curve on that black and white image just now? I don't think I did. Let me go back to it. See the power of Lightroom. Let me go back to the black and white image. I'm sorry. And let me add some tone curve. What's an image without some tone curve? That's about good. Let's undo and see what we got. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Now back to the landscape. All right. Let's go down to HSL colors. Just create some magic, right? Let's do green for the mountains, right? Increase the green. See that? Let me show you. Look at that. Pay attention to right here. See that? See what's happening if I go all the way to -100, right? And then blue for the sky. I can also pump that up. And I can change the hue of the blue to give me a nice teal looking sky. Let's just do that. See that? What do you guys think, right? So if you want, you can just change it a little bit to teal rather than the traditional like blue, 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 right? And then let's bump up the yellows because there should be some yellow in here. There's some yellow right here in this area, so it's fine. Maybe aqua. Yeah, there is some aqua in the sky. Just a little bit, not too much. And let's do profile corrections. See that? See, this was a wider lens compared to the lens that I last used. Let's hit I twice to see what I have. This is a wider lens. Yeah, this was a 35mm compared to a 70 to 200mm, right? That's why you can see the edges of the image like they straighten out. So yeah. And then if I wanted to add a vignette under effects, I just go to about minus. See that? I don't want that much, obviously, but let's do about -19 is fine. I mean, it's not a terrible difference, but just to show you guys what you can do, right? Next, what I can do is I can give this image a neat little crop, right? Let's go ahead and hit R for our crop and straighten tool. And let's just crop out a little bit of the road. Let me see what presets we have here in aspect ratio. Let's do 16:9. We were almost there. It didn't change much, right? So that's good. Let's see. Yeah, this looks good. I think I'm happy with this. Press enter. Let's remove. What do I want to remove? I mean, it's fine. It's fine. What do you guys think? It's fine. I really like this as is. Let's look at the before and after. Hitting Y. Turning off the info. And look at that. Look at the difference in this. What do you guys think? Let me change the comparison. Look at that. Look at this half of the image where we just started compared to where we ended up, right? How it started versus how it's going. This is so much better. What do you guys think? Now I can exit this by pressing Y to come out of the before and after, and then I can export or save all of these images, right? Because you can't post a raw image to Instagram or Facebook. You want to post a JPEG or a PNG, right? Something that's compatible. So I'm going to select all of my images that I just edited, right? by holding Shift and clicking on all of them, or you can do Control and A, and then you can go to File up top and then Export, right? Or you can hit Control Shift and E. That's the shortcut for it. And what you can do is you can also come in here when you get this dialog, right? You have an option. You have a lot of options here, right? Maybe some of these would be closed for you when you open Lightroom for the first time, but I always export my images to the same folder as the original photo just to keep everything organized and uniform so I know where to find them, right? And let's just name it LSPV Lightroom tutorial. Well, it's already there. LSPV Lightroom tutorial 01. That's fine. And for the file name, it's LSPV Lightroom tutorial 1 already. Let me just take off the 01 so you're not confused. And then I already have my custom settings to put 001 at the end. So each file I export, the first file will be named 01, second file 02, etc., etc., right? And you can edit this. By default, I don't think you have the 2 zeros here. So you can go ahead and hit the drop down menu and go custom settings, and you can edit that, right? What I have here was custom name sequence, but I edited it so I could put two zeros before the number of the file count, right? So this is where I put 2 zeros right here, and you can choose an option from all of this list, right? Cancel, just to show you guys, right? And the next thing I normally adjust is the file settings, JPEG traditionally, and you can limit the file size to however much megabytes you want. 5,000 kilobytes is approximately 5 megabytes, right? And you can also adjust the image size to something that you want. If you want it specific, if you want your image to not be bigger than a specific size, you can do that. Or if you want the long edge or short edge or the megapixels to be a particular number, you can adjust that as well. And you know, resolution is always 300. And you can choose what kind of metadata you want. Metadata meaning the camera information that I mentioned earlier that is in your raw file, or your copyright information that your camera puts onto your image. However much information you want to be in the image after you edit it, you have control over that. And you can also watermark your images by putting, like, if you wanted to put like copyright learn share photo video 2021 because I took the photo, you know, you took the photo, you can just put a little watermark line on that. So you'd go ahead and click edit watermarks, and then you can put your copyright info right here, right? And if you look right here, you can see the word copyright. Let me adjust it. Let me see that it's moving. You can make it bigger, right? See that? Copyright, whatever you want to put. I'm just showing you guys, right? And you can change the position, etc., etc. And after you export your file, you can either do nothing or open them in Photoshop, or just show them in your Finder or Explorer, right? I normally just put show in Explorer, so when it's done exporting, I know the folder will pop up and I'll have all of my edited photos to review, right? So let's go ahead and click export. Let's change it to do nothing. Export, and you can see in the top right hand corner, let's exit the full screen mode. It's exporting up here. You can see the status, right? And let's go ahead and look at the photos that we edited. They're in here. See the folder that we made. This is the name that we put. I always put LR exports. LR means Lightroom, obviously. So if we were to go in this folder and then view the edits that we made, all right, let's go ahead and double click on that and view it as a slideshow. Pause. What do you guys think? Look at the red, how it's just popping off of the green, right? So cool. See what else we have. Nice, very nice. Love this black and white. And then obviously the landscape photo, right? What do you guys think? I love them. I love them. I love them. Ooh, I love it. I love it. All right. Oh, they're all 1000. If you look right here, it's all, I may have done something in the export. Let me do it one more time. I think I may have hit resize. I did. See that? So because I did this by accident, it made all my photos like sized down. So let's do that again and then hit export. See what I mean? and then it's going to ask you if you want to like overwrite them because they have the same name. And let's just go ahead and hit overwrite, and then it will resave all of those photos. So perfect example, right? And as you can see, it's exporting up here. It will show you that it's exporting 4 files, and you'll see that bar going. All right, let's look at them one more time. I was actually wondering why the photos looked like that. They didn't look as sharp as I expected. All right, full screen. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. Right? So cool. So cool. Yes. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Question of the day. Have you ever used Adobe Lightroom before? Have you ever felt like you wanted to get more creative in your photo editing? And are you ready to lean into Lightroom and level up your photography? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, all these raw files that we edited today will be made available for you to download in the video description. Just check the first link below. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, my name is Cjam, and I will see you guys in the next video.